You're depressed, Miss Satori. I am depressed, I thought. I am depressed. I am depressed. I am depressed. There are three parts to this entry: reality, delusion, and nightmare. How can you differentiate dreams from reality? It's getting progressively harder for me to tell the difference. I just know I'm living three different lives: reality, delusion, and nightmare. I apologize in advance if this doesn't make any sense. Trust me, it's hard for me to tell. I figured continuing to write to you will help me in some way. I know it won't, but it's better to lie to myself. It's better to sit here and type to you than face my apartment painted in the most beautiful shade of red I've ever seen. I know if I were still myself, I would feel something. I'd feel scared. I'd feel disgusted. I'd feel pain. I want to tell you things are okay. I want to tell you the reality I'm in right now is a delusion. That all those things didn't happen. But I know it's not. And I can't keep lying to myself. I can't keep lying because I know what is happening to me now. I know my fate. I can't run away anymore because they're always one step ahead of me. How can they not be? They know exactly what I'm thinking and what I'm going to do before I do it. They know my moves before the thought comes to fruition in my mind. They're in my head, whispering into my thoughts. I can feel them. I can feel us. Writing this makes me feel like I'm still me. Like I still have my own thoughts, my own voice. I'm going to tell you my life, or at least the past few days through my eyes. Each day bleeds into nothing in my mind. I only remember splinters. I woke up wet, soaking wet. Everything was wet. My sheets, comforter, and pillows. The last thing I could remember was walking towards Starbucks in the pouring rain. So, I guessed it made some sense that I was wet. But soaked? Did something leak? A water bottle? Waking up felt strange. Like I was floating on a cloud. I don't remember opening my eyes. I don't remember sitting up. I just know I was. My body propped up on my elbows. I was wearing the same clothes from the night before. They were glued to me, sticking to my flesh. My bed was swamped with water. When I shakily brought my hands up to wipe my eyes, they were wet. It felt like I was underwater, drowning under pitch dark depths swallowing me up. But I wasn't. was in bed. I was in my apartment. Safe. My head was a cavern, but for the first time in weeks, I wasn't counting. I wasn't wrestling back control of my mind. Blinking in early morning sunlight flittering through my curtains, I noticed a figure looming over me. A figure that I swore wasn't there a second ago. My mind snapped back to silhouettes bleeding into the dark corridors. Men and women peering over me, clutching silver instruments and poking at the back of my head. A scream erupted in the back of my throat and I stiffened up. But no. When the figure laughed, I realized who it was. Cass. Still in her robe. My roommate peered down at me. Hey. She didn't seem to notice my soaking bed, which set off alarm bells in my head. Cass freaked out if I had chip crumbs on my carpet and wasn't batting an eyelid at my swamp of a bed. Damn, Maki. Damn, Maki. It's almost like you want to get fired. Again, she spoke through a yawn. I mean, I won't blame you. Honestly, getting fired would do you good. Her voice sounded weird. Like an echo. Like I'd heard it before. When I didn't move, Cass grabbed a pillow and threw it in my face. Dry. When I grabbed the pillow, squeezing it between my fingers, the material was dry. But I still felt something wet. Something wallowing around me like I was suspended on invisible currents. Now that I was fully awake, I noticed the sunlight was too bright. The sky outside was the perfect shade of blue, but it looked wrong. Everything looked, felt, and sounded wrong. Maki. Cass's voice was in a phantom sing-song. Hello? Are you even listening to me? I watched her dance across my carpet, barefoot, grabbing the Starbucks cup off of my bedside table. I looked for my name, usually scrawled in my handwriting. Something was written in black marker, but I couldn't read it. Just like the numbers I'd seen on the clock at work. The word was warped and tangled, unable to register in my brain. Cass's smile fizzled out when she noticed my expression. She juggled the cup and it flew out of her hands, and I felt the urge ignite inside of me. My reflexes twitching, my body ready to leap forwards and grab for it. Okay, I get it. You're tired. You've been working all night. But you promised me we'd hang out and watch that new Netflix show. She pouted. And when I came home from class, you're already gone. It hurt that I couldn't remember that promise. I couldn't remember so many conversations and memories I'd had with my roommate. My mind being cruelly picked apart by Anna and Agent Carter. Those two names, I remembered. I remembered Ben freaking out on the corridor his arms tied behind his back, a bandage wrapped around his red curls. I remembered Sam snapping the rabbit's neck on command, and after seemingly snapping out of it, refusing to do the same to a little girl. I didn't see the rest of that memory. It fizzled out before I could fully grasp hold of it. I'd come to walking with the three of them, who were oblivious to what was happening to us. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. Before they followed me home, Sam, he was at my door, whispering into the hole in my head. And then, nothing. Maki, are you okay? Opening my mouth to speak, I couldn't. The words were there, but my throat was parched. My lips felt wrong. When I ran my hands over my sheets, they were bone dry. When I grabbed my leg and the material of my tank top, they were dry. Maki, are you okay? Opening my mouth to speak, I couldn't. The words were there, but my throat was parched. My lips felt wrong. When I ran my hands over my sheets, they were bone dry. When I grabbed my leg and the material of my tank top, they were dry. It didn't make sense. I was soaking wet a second ago. When I turned to Cass, she was frowning. There was that expression again. She was worried. And I had no idea what to tell her. Look, I know you've got those new friends, and I'm happy for you, Maki, but it's like I don't even know you anymore. All you do is work, and then you come home and pass out for like 3 fucking days. Then you start questioning me. Like, how am I supposed to know why you're borderline narcoleptic? She started pacing the room like she always did, and my eyes followed her back and forth. Something in my head, something deep down was telling me I'd seen this before. Deja vu, I thought dizzily. Cass spun around to face me. Maybe it's because you dumped your life for that job, she said. What's happening? Are they doing something to you, Maki? Cass leaned forward with a scowl. Brainwashing? She whispered. It's brainwashing, isn't it? I should have known. That's why their coffee tastes so good. There's some messed up formula, right? Is that what you learn? Her words were going in one ear and out the other. It was like she was having a conversation with herself. And you dumped me for what? Some barista job? What's next? Are you planning on moving into the goddamn store? I had a hard time answering. Her words were supposed to hurt. They were supposed to perforate me like needles. I was supposed to feel something. Anger at her clear jealousy. That's what usually happened. She would say something she didn't mean, which came from a place of frustration, and I get over emotional and ignore her until I gathered the courage to talk to her. But I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel pissed or upset. Cass! Cass! I managed to choke out. My voice was hoarse coming out of my mouth. She shook her head. No, I don't want an excuse this time. Her eyes were soft. You can tell me what's going on, instead of bottling it up. I called your mom because I was so worried, and she wants to come visit. I'm fine, I whispered. Really? I'm just tired, she cut in. Yeah, I know. You're working crazy hours, Maki. You need a break. What time is it? I asked, my voice groggy. 8:30. Cass grabbed the pillow and threw it in the air and caught it. You're late for work, but you're not going. I don't have class today, so we're going to spend the whole day eating ice cream and binging Netflix. Yeah, I'd like that, I said, running my hands through my hair. It felt damp, strands limp between my fingers. I'll join you when I get back, okay? Will you, though? Cass rolled her eyes. Oh, there's a guy at the door. I'm guessing he's from your work. Work? Something cold slipped down my spine. I knew who she meant automatically. Do you mean Sam? She shrugged. I don't know his name. I just know he has like 0 patience. How long has he been knocking? Maybe 5 minutes? And you didn't think to wake me up? I hissed out. The words felt wrong. Like I'd said them before. I jumped out of bed, showering quickly and brushing my teeth, throwing on a crumpled dress I found on the floor. My movements were slow despite my quickening pace, like I wasn't really moving. Cass followed me as I hurried to grab my jacket and bag. My first thought was to talk to Sam. I didn't know what I was going to say to him, but I had to tell him what was going on. All of them. No matter how crazy I sounded. It didn't make sense that only I remembered what was happening to us. Surely they had to remember something. It would make sense that they were in denial. But for this long? If they knew something, they would have questioned when I tugged Sam's... If they knew something, they would have questioned when I tugged Sam's sleeve up, searching for the numbers I'd been printed on its skin. If they knew something, they would have questioned when I tugged Sam's sleeve up, searching for the numbers I'd seen printed on his skin. 626, I remembered. His subject name. When I was looking for my phone, trying to think of a way to tell Sam what was happening, Cass stepped in front of me. Please, she said. Maki, just take a day off. When she reached to grab my shoulders, my body seemed to react, my hands twitching by my sides. I knew exactly how to kill her. The thought came to me like a wave of crushing water. I knew the weak points in her neck, exactly where I'd crush her windpipe. There were 3 knives in the kitchen, the ones my mom gave us when we moved in. A bread knife, a carving knife, and a butcher knife. Before I could fully register those thoughts that bubbled to the forefront of my mind, I sidestepped past her and stepped into the hallway. A splash startled me. When I looked down, I was standing ankle deep in water. I blinked once, then twice. Nothing happened. The water was still there. I bent down, dragging the tips of my fingers across the surface. I felt it. Real. When I straightened up, there was something all too familiar at the end of the hallway. A ball of fluffy white. A rabbit. When the rabbit turned around, its head was hung at an awkward angle. Blood matting at its fur. I knew exactly what had happened to it. I could still feel the warmth of it in my arms. That tiny head cradled my chest. Agent Carter's command reverberating in my mind. Kill the rabbit, 234. His voice sounded close. Too close. Warm breath stinking of garlic grazing my cheeks. I squeezed it tighter to my chest. Tighter. It started to struggle. Tighter. Maki? Hey, are you gonna answer the door? Cass was already making her way down the hallway, wading through water. I knew she was there. I could hear her in my mind, sense her next to me. But when I blinked once, twice, 3 times, she was nowhere to be seen. There was only a shadow, a silhouette of my roommate with her bouncing ponytail heading to the door. I stood for a moment and it was hard to move, hard to breathe, before I forced myself to follow her. Cass couldn't see the water, I thought. She couldn't see the rabbit. I chased after her, but my movement was slow. Too slow. Like I was clawing through syrup. When I stepped into the kitchen, I expected it to be flooded too. It wasn't. It looked exactly the same. Cass was back in front of me like she'd never left. Her smile was bright, but I didn't trust it. I didn't trust that she wasn't complaining about me going to work or trying to make me stay. Cass seemed to waver in and out of focus like the rabbit. Deep down, I knew why. My hands were filthy. I couldn't clean them. I couldn't get her off of them. I couldn't get her off of them. She was everywhere. All over my apartment in the most mesmerizing shade of red. I glimpsed it splashed all over the floor, the table, the countertop. where I'd grabbed my roommate's head and slammed it into the counter until her body was limp, until she was a mess of unrecognizable, distorted, beautiful red at my feet. I'll see you when you get back, okay? Yes. I wanted to say, yes. I'll come home and we can watch movies. I'll quit my job. I promise. I was counting when I left her. 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 7. I was counting when the voice in my head asked if I felt anything when I ripped her apart. If I felt regret, pain. He told me to enjoy the pretty shades of red. And I did. You are depressed, Miss Satori, a voice echoed. It was close. It was so close. Too close. I am depressed, I thought dizzily. I am depressed. I am depressed. Her chuckle brought me back to reality. A reality I was trying to ignore. A reality I had already been through, but I was hiding away from it, forcing it to the back of my mind. When I opened my eyes, I was staring up at the pretty blue tiles Cass had bought for our black bathroom. The tub was full and overflowing, and I couldn't move. I was numb, my arms hanging limply over the edge. The water was lukewarm, but my body was trembling. Something red diffusing the current lapping around my legs. If I concentrated, I could feel what had been done to me. The hole in my head I was forced to ignore. I knew it was there. In that current state, I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel the breeze from the open window grazing my cheeks, or the stinging sensation in both of my arms and legs. There was nothing. I was aware of someone looming over me. I already knew who it was. I have children of my own. Anna, or Agent Taryn, said softly. I didn't want to look at her. I didn't want to look at what she was doing. Simone. Simon. He's 15. And my youngest, Arabella. She just started first grade. I noticed Anna's fingers were already slick red. Like the fingerprints on smooth porcelain. The ones that were supposed to be mine. They're a reminder, Anna said, that this, she held something that glinted in the light, this is worth it. I wanted to speak, to ask her why I couldn't feel, why it was so hard to think. to think straight, but my lips were numb. I couldn't speak. And if I tried to, something else was there. Words that weren't mine. Words I had to share. When Anna moved, her face swam into view. She was smiling, but her eyes were hard, merciless. Miss Satori, I know what you're thinking. She placed a small bottle on the edge of the tub. What's the difference between my children and you? Kneeling on the floor, she stroked her fingers through tangles of my wet hair. You are barely an adult yourself, as much as I try to deny it. But Simon and Arabella? They're important, if you can understand that. And not just to me, they are a valuable part of our country. They mean something to this world. They're both going to grow up and will follow in my footsteps. Her laugh was light. Maybe they'll be greater than me. I just know that my children will make their generation. I just know that my children will make sure their generation and the ones after are safe and looked after. Her fingers tightened in my hair, grasping hold of my scalp. As for you and the others, forgive me for saying this, because what I'm saying comes professionally. I am a mother, and I would never dream of doing this to a child. However, you, as well as the other subjects, are what we call expendable. To put it in the simplest of terms, you four are not actively doing anything with your lives. As for you and the others, forgive me for saying this, because what I'm saying comes professionally. I am a mother, and I would never dream of doing this to a child. However, you, as well as the other subjects, are what we call expendable. To put it in the simplest of terms, you four are not actively doing anything with your lives. No, I thought weakly. I was. I was going to be. I was going to. The thought was tangled in my mind. I've been going to college for 3 years. But what for? As if she was reading my thoughts, Anna sighed, playing with my hair. If it weren't for the White Rabbit program, I can assure you the four of you would still be drowning in your mundane lives. You were students. You were planning on getting your diploma and getting a job. Her laugh was harsh, cutting into me. Except, no. Anna pulled at my hair. Students are lazy. College is just another excuse for them to hide away from adulthood for the next 5 years. And that, Miss Satori, is exactly what the four of you were doing. Am I right, or am I wrong? I couldn't speak for the others, but she was right about me. I had no plans for after college. I had no idea what to do with my diploma and had barely any job experience. Maki Satori, Anna said. You come from a poor background. Your parents struggling financially. Your father left when you were 13, and since then, your mother has been using you as a coping mechanism, a replacement. Her words struck me, but again, I felt nothing. No pain, anger, rage. It felt wrong. So wrong that she knew such intimate details of my life in vivid detail. Samuel Quinn, she continued in a low hum. Sam was running from the debt his late parents left him. I didn't want her to continue. I didn't want to know the others' lives. But still, she continued, like it thrilled her to torture me. Ben Marriott dealt drugs to college kids to help pay for his little sister's medical bills as well as his own tuition. And Luna Reyes? Well, let's just say she wasn't quite the perfect girl you saw at first glance. Their names sounded strange coming from her mouth, without using their subject names. They were real people with real lives, and I only knew them from splintered pieces of my memory, pieces I weren't even sure were real. And that's on top of being students, Anna chuckled. You were perfect. I felt a slight prick, a tingle in my wrist when she ran her fingers down my arm. I saw the red. I saw it pulling on pristine white, diffusing the water. Nobody will miss you, she said. Sam's parents were killed in a car crash in 2019. Ben's mother returned to the UK without him, and his father overdosed just several months ago now. As for Luna, her mother and father have turned their back on her. She was what they called a problem daughter. No, I thought dizzily. That wasn't right. Luna had a mother that cared about her. That's what she told me. Right? Compared to my children, to children who mean something, you meant nothing. She hummed. Nobody will look for you. Any of you. Even your mother, who you know wishes you were never born. I knew what this tactic was. Anna was trying to put words in my mouth, ugly thoughts into my head. And yet, even then, I was replaying how happy Mom had been when I'd revealed I'd be going to college across the country. "Want to be too far?" I'd ask, and she'd shake her head and hug me tighter, squeezing me to her chest. I wanted my mom at that moment. I wanted to hug her again. I wanted to tell her to me I wasn't a burden. I wanted her to tell me I wasn't a burden. That I meant something to her. Dad didn't leave because of me. I knew he didn't. but Anna made me second guess myself. You see me as selfish. Anna's tone hardened. And I can understand that. I am selfish. We are peaceful. And I can understand that. I am selfish. We are selfish. What we do to people to make sure our future is bright and our children can continue to love peaceful and happy lives. It is very selfish. When I risked a glance at her, there was a sad smile on her face. If we don't take these risks, then we open ourselves up to threats that come every day. Threats that are destroyed before they become public knowledge. You've grown up protected, Miss Satori. All four of you. Because of us. Because of these risks that we have made. And yes, that includes using people to our advantage. People we see that are not living constructive lives. Anna sighed. Like, she wanted me to argue. And I wanted to. I wanted to wrap my hands around her neck and squeeze until her eyes were bugging out of her head. And I knew how. I knew how I'd kill her. Like I'd killed Cass. Under the order from Agent Carter. My hands twitched by my sides, my fingers lapping the water. I owe you an apology. Her voice cracked. Project White Rabbit was supposed to be a revival experiment where our main goal was to find and recruit agents through tactics mirroring those of our predecessors. Her voice was calm, her words bleeding into me. Believe it or not, this is the first time since the 60s that we've subjected potential agents to mind control methods. You, of course, know of one of our first attempts. One of humanity's greatest breakthroughs. And I guess our biggest failure. Because it didn't truly come into fruition, did it? Anna hummed. It was killed before we even had a chance to perfect it. I knew what she meant. Or at least, the one in public knowledge. I remembered being 15 and first being introduced to it by my school friend. I couldn't remember how he had got onto the subject, but the whole thing had fascinated me. Project Blue, Anna said. Finally, we were able to control the thought process. The techniques were inhumane, yes, but we were getting somewhere. Interrogation was a thing of the past, and yet we were shunned by our superiors. The project shut down because of minuscule things such as morality and empathy. She scoffed. We won't need morality and empathy when are attacked. We won't need morality and empathy when we are attacked. We need what makes us human in the first place. We need our basic survival instincts and what has been taken from us since we began. That insatiable need to kill before we are picked off first by the ones stronger than us. What we're born with. Anna kept talking. I wondered if this was her way of justifying what she was doing. As she spoke, Anna continued to play with tiny bottles, pouring them onto the side of the tub. She counted each one with an exaggerated slowness. Miss Satori, let me explain it the best way I can. Ever since our species began, we have taken what we wanted by killing. We have killed to eat, to survive, to have shelter. That is how we adapted, she gritted out. There was no need for morality. We didn't care what we did as long as we survived, right? Now, humanity is sick, plagued with emotions that do not help us. They only hold us back. They make us think before acting, when we should just act. When we are given an order, there's no need to think about it, whether it will cause hurt. She cleared her throat. There was a famous saying, Miss Satori. Anna dipped her fingers in the water before dragging an edge across my palm. I didn't feel anything. My body did, spasming under her touch. But I didn't feel. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. It's French, she continued. L'appel du vide. The call of the void. You've probably experienced it. Of course you have. You're standing on the edge of a road. There's a woman standing close to you, and just for a moment, you get that craving. An irresistible urge to push her into the path of a car. Anna withdrew her hand. Of course, we never do it. Something stops us. Something deeply rooted inside our head tells us to stop. There's a barrier inside our head that stops us doing things like that. It makes us think. It makes us think of consequences. My gaze found her fingernails stroking up and down my arm. And that was White Rabbit. That was White Rabbit. That is what we centered the project around. Not only manipulation of the thought process, but also to cut out that alarm, that voice in your head that tells you to stop. The moral barrier that stops you from acting on impulse. Sensing movement, my eyes followed Anna as she stood up, folding her arms across her chest. Because what use is taking control of the mind when it is still weighed down by all those emotions? Pain, guilt, anger, regret. If we were to take all of those away, we wouldn't just have a soldier, an agent. We would have someone ripped of their humanity, the humanity that plagues the planet, and brought back to default, back to what we were. Slowly, Anna sat back. That, Miss Satori, that is why I owe you an apology. This time, we went too far. Silence. Only the drip, drip, drip of the tap, which made me think of burning, scolding, spluttering and screaming. The relentless pain I'd gone through to make me count down, to force the numbers through my lips. We knew it was a risk, but we're prepared to take it. For the good of our country and its children. Our future. We would take ordinary people your age, as long as they were expendable, and subject them to the exact same techniques we used in earlier projects. However, Phase 1 was when we could lose them. Phase 1 was when we would lose them. The training video. You four were the first ones who submitted. Anna let out a breath. You attracted the higher-ups, and Protocol GM46 was brought in. I won't go into detail, but even we have humanity left. What I wanted was to create agents. It is my job. GM46, which we attempted to destroy in the late 80s, was a sister experiment to its predecessor. A copycat created by a deranged mind who wanted to go one step further. And its objective was to make monsters. My mind snapped back to one of my splintered memories. I was back in the classroom sitting in front of a TV full of static. There was a voice in my head, and I was counting. But the closer I got, the room started to tremble. The desks shook. Something warm ran from my nose and dripped from my chin. There was a voice in my head screeching, leeching into my mind. It was growing louder and louder, and my body was shaking, contorting. My vision was blurring. I couldn't breathe. A bulb exploded above me, showering the room in glass. Stop! Anna's phantom shriek rattled in my mind. Turn it off! Her gaze found mine. Yes. I mean monsters. Humans turned beasts. We have made them in the past, and I stand by what I say. It's one of our greatest mistakes to date. These beings have been locked far away. I don't even know what would happen if they would get These beings have been locked far away. I don't even know what would happen if they would to get out. The threat they pose to our planet is catastrophic. Monsters. Is that what I was? What I was becoming? They come from a place of paranoia. We wanted to create something bigger than us. A being that, if let loose to an enemy, would wipe them out. Anna's voice shook slightly. And as you can imagine, that is what my superiors want to do to you. She caught herself. I mean, done to you. Anna curled her lip. Now, I'm sure you can remember through the memory blanks we implemented. These experiments weren't humane, but they were successful. As I said, you four are our first successes in years. In our eyes, you are a miracle. And that only pushed them to attempt GM46. Anna's fingers traced my palms. I fought for it. I told them to let you go. I couldn't detect emotion in her voice. I swear to you, Miss Satori, I told them to stop. However, they insisted you were put through the old protocol. We attempted to destroy it when we created those things. However, the protocol was salvaged and you were subjected to it. Now, the memory blanks we implemented were only temporary to make sure you stayed stable. I know you remember what we did to you, Miss Satori, and I apologize for that. GM46 did some terrible things to you, cursing you with abilities a human cannot and will not be able to harbor. Anna grabbed for my wrist, and this time it was almost a motherly touch, her fingers wrapping around mine. There is nothing I can do. The process has already begun, and it's my responsibility to ensure you four do not pose a threat to our country, that you are neutralized before my superiors can cause any more damage. You don't deserve to be put with. You still have your humanity. But not for long. Not if they have their way. Individually, you are bad enough. But together, you could wipe us out. Her lips grazed my ear, and I felt them. If I don't stop this now, Miss Satori, they're going to turn you four into one of them. The beasts they hide away. The ones they pretend don't exist until a threat requires their use. So, she pushed my head lower until I could taste the water seeping through my lips. You're going to go to sleep. Anna let out a soft sigh. You're depressed, Maki. You've been holding it in for so long, but you can't deal with it anymore. Your roommate left you. Your mother doesn't care. You're tired. You're tired of living the same day over and over again. There's no change. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. You're drifting towards. Anna's fingers gently caressed my scalp before gripping a handful and giving a violent tug. Something ignited inside of me. An urge to jump up, my hands itching, twitching in the water. I'd wrap my hands around her neck and snap it in two. I plunged my fingers into her eyes and plucked them from her skull. Darkness, Anna finished. Doesn't that sound terrible? Who in their right mind would want that? You're heading towards a life that you will only despise and wish and wish and wish that you had taken the option years ago. The one I'm offering you. The lights above me illuminated the scene perfectly. The story Anna had laid out. Lower. I was slipping into the water and my body refused to fight back. Anna pushed me deeper. Her voice was breaking, and I half wondered if she regretted it. You're becoming a singular being, bound by thought and soon flesh. If I don't stop this now, they'll take the last of your humanity with no mercy. They don't care. They don't care who they hurt, who they torture and kill, as long as they get a result. Her voice wobbled and wavered when I sunk under the surface. All I need to do is cut off a head, and the four of you will no longer be a threat. I hope you can forgive me. I'm sure one day I will thank all of you. I'm sure one day I will think of all of you. She didn't need to hold me underwater. I was stiff, my body a puppet cut from its strings. Now, count back from 10 for me. Her voice was soft, and my mind reacted. My lips were moving, gurgling water. It was pathetic how I obeyed her despite my mouth filling with water, my lungs bursting, chest aching. 10. The countdown was slow. Anna's voice was in my head. I was still counting. Her footsteps were padding away. I was slipping further and further into the water, and the numbers were still on my lips. 9. Anna shut the door behind her. 8. I said into the water. On 7, my mind whirred. The sound of the drip, drip, drip coming from the tap fading into murmured voices. I was no longer in a bathtub of water, instead lying down. Velcro pinning my wrists. The room was dark. There was something in my head, always sticking into the back of my skull. When I moved my head to try and glimpse something, there was only the dark. When I opened my mouth to cry out, I couldn't. There was something soft wrapped around my neck, and I had a sudden recollection of gloved fingers wrapped around a scalpel inching towards the curve of my throat, and then the icy prick of a felt tip marker making an incision point. There was a man in pale blue talking to someone I couldn't see, and he was poking at my throat. Chords, I remembered him saying, his voice slipping in and out of my mind choked with fog. So we'll make? Still need a voice. Merch. Fuck. A familiar voice rang out in my head, crackling to life. Fuck. A familiar voice rang out in my head, crackling to life. Wrong, I thought. It was wrong. But it was real. I heard it perfectly. But the room was empty. His voice was slurred, a low mumble vibrating in my skull. My head hurts, he whispered. Really, really hurts, man. Fuck. So much pain. Just wanted to stop. Sam. It was Sam. When I lifted my head to scan the room, though, I was alone. The room looked to be an operating theater, though I had been left on the metal slab like meat to the slaughter. Oh God. Sam's voice broke into a sharp cry. I'm here again. I'm here again. This isn't real. This isn't real. I'm going fucking crazy. You're not crazy, I thought. If this was my only way to tell him, then so be it. Maki? Sam, listen to me. This is real. Then I'm in a nightmare. They're doing something to me. To my head. He felt so close. His panicked breaths exploding in my skull kept me anchored. This place. Where are we? I glimpsed a white rabbit by the door. When it turned to me, its eyes had been plucked out. Wonderland, I thought, thinking of the doors I flew past, tied down on a bed of metal. The inhuman noises that came from each one. Sam laughed at that. He laughed until static took over and his laughter turned into screams that rattled in my head. When I couldn't block them out, a deluge of Sam and Luna and Ben screeching inside my skull. I fell for a while. I'm not sure for how long. I fell until a bright light pricked into a harrowing clarity. I was standing in another room, not the classroom. This one was bigger. I was numb. Numb despite the hole in my head and my bloodied feet on pristine white. Sam, Ben, and Luna were next to me. We stood over something. Entangled limbs and torsos with no heads. It didn't faze me. It should have. Seeing what was in front of me, it should have done something to me. But it didn't. Something dropped from my hands. Half of a disfigured head. Blonde ringlets stained red. There was a noise ringing in my head. A symphonic screeching sound. There was static in my skull, and my body was tremoring along with the walls, the floor, the ceiling. There was something newly weaved inside my mind. I felt it like a physical presence. Stop! Anna's soft hiss. Stop! Her command struck me. Her command struck me, and I closed my mouth that I didn't know was open. That noise, that monstrous screech ringing in my head, was that us? Next to me, the others did the same. When I looked for a spark of awareness on Sam's face, there was nothing. I told you. A voice. Agent Carter. GM46 is successful. The merge is not yet finalized, though we are close. You've lost your mind. Anna's voice inching on hysteria. The purpose of White Rabbit was to create brand new agents. Subject 564. Agent Carter's gaze landed on Ben. Kill the guard behind you. Ben reacted automatically, twisting around. I only saw a flash, but it was enough to see the man being torn apart, limb by limb. His head went first, twisted off like a bottle cap. The sickening snap of his neck. Then his arms pulled off from like doll pieces. When the remnants of what used to be the guard dropped to the ground with a soft thump, Anna let out a shriek. The guard looked smug, turning to Ben. 626. Once again, the child. A little girl was brought in. There was no pause this time. Sam strode towards her and all I saw was a sharp blur of red. My brain blocked it out. Carter cleared his throat. I believe what you attempted and failed at, Agent Taryn. We have managed it on our first try. Say what you want, Taryn. The serum is working perfectly. 652. Carter nodded to Luna, who didn't look like Luna anymore. She looked like a poor imitation of a girl. The other guard. Rip his head off. Luna responded just like the boys. I only heard what sounded like a sharp cry and the sound of ripping flesh. What have you done? Anna whispered. This wasn't our goal. What we have done is taken a risk which proved successful, Carter said. I have clearance to begin the penultimate phase in the coming weeks. And as you know, the first stage of amalgamation is complete. Think about what you're doing. Anna stepped in front of him. The protocol is dangerous. There's a reason why we tried to destroy it. Taryn, you're letting your emotions get the better of you. Carter grunted. I'll be taking over this project. I knew it. Her voice was sour. You're greedy, Carter. The aim was to create sleepers, which we've succeeded. Get her out of here, Carter said. You're sick, Anna spat. When she was grabbed by 2 guards and dragged out, her cry rang out. Don't do this. You haven't even gotten clearance. Thank you for your service, Taryn. What about when it goes wrong? Are you going to be the one to blame when they slaughter innocent civilians? You know where they belong. 6 feet under where you put all the other failures. They're dangerous. I was falling again. Always falling. And his voice faded out when something yanked on me. I was pulled from my own mind and back into reality. A bathtub. Reality. Not delusion or nightmare. The reality I'm stuck in. The one I can't escape. There were hands grasping onto me, pulling me out of the tub. I don't remember taking a breath. I don't think I need to. When I hit the ground, 3 faces blurred into view. Luna, Sam, and Ben. Found you. Sam's voice was a drone. When he smiled, I felt my lips stretch into a grin that matched his. Ben nodded. His smile was the same. Agent Taryn has been neutralized. Sam held a phone and slowly reached out, pressing it to my ear. Agent Taryn has been taken care of. She can't be trusted. The man. Carter's voice crawled into my skull. She will no longer be a problem. Now, count back from 10 for me. And clean up the mess downstairs. Mess. He meant my roommate. The rest of his words were drowned out by the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 7. Another 10 hours. I don't think I'm me anymore. I think I'm them. And they're me. With their every movement, my own body moves with them, twitching and contorting as they come closer. I can't scream. They have my voice. I have theirs. 3 different tongues, accents, voices suffocating my mouth. They're so close. I can sense them. I can hear their thoughts before they come to fruition. Their words are already in my mouth, clawing for a way out. It's always the same thought. That countdown. I can hear it bouncing between 4 minds. Every number that slips into my mind, I lose myself. I stop thinking for seconds, minutes, sometimes hours. While my body bleeds and they continue to drill inside my head, picking apart what I am desperately trying to cling on to. My voice, my thoughts. I'm trying to hold on to myself. They're taking it away. They're taking me away. And my body will continue. My limbs puppeteered by the parasite in my brain. The voice whispering into my head. The colors are beautiful, 234. You like the color red. You don't feel anything for your roommate, do you? No, of course not. She was a distraction. 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 7. I'm counting. Always counting. I have an idea, though I'm sure they already know of it. That's why they're here. Anna tried to kill me. To kill all 4 of us. I just need to do what she failed. I need to cut off a head. Hey everybody, thank you for watching this video. Sorry it's been a while since I've posted. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. See you next time.